Christopher Dudley from
Hey,
Underoath. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good. It's actually my birthday today, so I am just fucking
Happy
vibing.
birthday.
Thank you.
You got anything
I'll
big planned today?
yeah, going out to lunch and then going to see Spider-Man and
Ooh,
then
I'm hearing good things.
get ascended to the astral plane. What are
There
you
we
doing?
go.
What's going on in your world tonight? Today?
Well, it is about 7 p.m. here. I'm kind of sort of winding my day down. I've got a little bit of scotch and I'm talking to you. And yeah, probably going to make some music a little bit later. I got some projects I need to work on, so I'll probably take advantage of the evening to do that.
Beautiful. Living the dream.
Can't complain. Can't complain.
Love it. I'll jump straight into it because, of course, we are officially less than a month away from this absolutely insane new record, Voyeurist. What's the vibe like right now in the Underoath camp as you guys gear up to unleash this beast into the wild?
I was saying earlier that it's for me it's a little weird because the response to like everything I'm saying has been like concerningly good. Like everybody seems to be digging it, which I don't know for a for a piece of art. I don't know if that's necessarily good or if like you know I'm like, man, are only the people who are commenting or saying things to me like the people who like really like what we do, or is it like it's actually just a really good record? So there's like a little bit of like uh on my end anyway, like nervousness for the record to come out because when we write and record an album, there's never any thought to like, oh, what do people want to hear, or what would connect or whatever. Like it's always just what do we want to write. And so there's this time in between when we do the record and when it comes out where it's like, okay, well, we know we made the record that makes us happy. Now we'll see if anybody likes it. So yeah, so I guess all that being said, the vibe in our camp is super positive because we've worked really hard on this record and it's coming out soon and we're getting touring ramping up again. So all in all, just very optimistic about the new year.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, like making a record that you guys want to make and the music that makes you happy. If I can be completely honest, I remember when I listened to Erase Me for the first time, it like felt like a religious experience. Like that is without a doubt my favorite Underoath record.
Awesome.
But
Thank you.
I know that is not exactly the most popular opinion amongst like the hardcore fans. Were you a little thrown off by the reception that record got?
No, no, not at all. Because like jittery has always been like, like I said, we have always just written what we feel like writing. Because if you go back to like They're Only Chasing Safety, like when that came out, did really well, and everybody in like the industry, like label management, it was like, hey, like lean into this like melodic structured stuff, make it a little more polished, and you guys will take off, like you'll be like the next big thing or whatever. And we were just like, that's not what we want to do at all. Like we want to make something darker and heavier and and we ended up making Define the Great Line, which ended up doing really well, but it wasn't what if we were doing what we're doing to try to be successful, quote unquote, then we would have not written Define the Great Line, and we also wouldn't have done Lost in the Sound of Separation or Disambiguation or Erase Me, because when we came back, because we broke up for a few years, and when we decided we wanted to make a record, we're like, I remember having quite a few discussions of like, well, this is what we want to write, but is this an Underoath record? And I remember specifically Aaron was like, well, if we write it, it's an Underoath record, like, because Underoath is us, like we can do whatever we want. So, and we knew the record was different, but we didn't care. We're just like, this is what we want to write and hope people like it. And if they don't, then, we're still the ones that have to play these songs on stage every night. So if we're playing songs that we're like feeling halfway because we're trying to appease someone, then that's not gonna work. So, so no, that, but overall the response to that record was really strong. It was interesting though, because we gained a lot of new people from that record. So the response from them is like, oh, like a ton of people thought we were like a new band, and oh, who are these guys? And that record got us on a ton of tours that we would never have thought we would have ever been able to do, and took us places where we never thought we'd be able to go. And then like, for the new one, if we were still going down that trajectory, it would be write more hooky rock songs, maybe a ballad, things like that, where if I was a businessman and somebody's like, hey, how do I sell the most records and make the most money? I'd be like, that's what you do. Like, write more radio songs, try to get played on the radio more, appeal to this audience, and that will sell you records. But we were just, we just want to do what stokes us out. And that's, what Voyeurist ended up being. So,
yeah. And it, not to blow smoke, but it fucking paid off. The record's sick.
Thanks. We'll see if it paid off. We'll see how people respond to it. But again, we're the ones playing the songs every night, and we love them. So that's what we care about.
Oh yeah, of course. Was it like, so as far as the creative process goes, I know this record was the first time you guys have actually like fully self-produced. What was that experience like?
It was a lot of things. It was scary at first, just because we'd never done it before. But at the same time, we've Tim has been recording bands forever. Aaron writes with like everybody under the sun, doing writing sessions, and, records a ton of solo stuff on his own. I do a ton of film scoring, and, we knew that we had the skill set. It was just a matter of pulling the trigger and saying like, hey, do we trust ourselves to make an Underoath record? Which in hindsight is silly to think about. It's like, it's our band, like it's our music. Like, why can we not make our own record? But so it was a little nerve-wracking going into it, because we knew that people were going to look at this record and know that we self-produced it. So we knew that we had to make it like just as ridiculously good as we possibly can. Like, there's no stone unturned, because if we have our first self-produced record and it ends up being the record that like nobody likes, then it's like, oh man, like I guess those guys can't do it, without a producer or whatever. But I don't think we were really concerned about that, but we were cognizant of the fact that like, hey, we're stamping our name on this thing as this is 100% us. So, we have to nail it. It was also, a little hard, because there is an element of when you're working with a producer, some of the personal discussion and responsibility amongst ourselves kind of gets taken off our shoulders, because we can defer to the producer. It's like, wow, what do we think about that vocal take? And it's like, I'm like, I don't know, like, producer, what do you think of it? And then I just kind of like take it over to them to be like, yeah, I think we could do better, rather than, me having to like just blatantly be like, Tim, that guitar part's not right. Like, it's not good enough. We need to make it better, or somebody talking to me and be like, Chris, that doesn't sound good. We need to make that better. Like, it's like, even though we've been doing this for 20 years and, we've known each other forever, there's still like, that's still a hard thing to do sometimes, just to be blatantly honest with your friend and be like, hey, the thing you're doing, that creative thing you're doing, it's not working, and yeah. So it was a lot of things all rolled into one.
So how did that impact the creative dynamic that exists within like Underoath? Did the self-production and that sort of like taking on that responsibility to be your own critics as unapologetically as you had to be, did that impact the collaborative aspect of the record?
100%. But all in positive way. Like, looking back on where we were as a creative unit prior to this record and where we're at now, it's like night and day. Like, because there's a level of trust that we now have with each other as creatives that we didn't have prior to this record. Like, I had to lean on Tim, I had to lean on Aaron, I had to lean on Spencer, and they had to lean on me. We all had to lean on each other, and I had to be okay with like, if one of the guys is telling me that something that I'm doing is not right, trusting them and not like pushing back and saying like, well, hey, but it is right because, I'm doing it. Like, I know that there are certain things that if Aaron tells me, hey, this isn't working, I'm like, I know he knows what he's talking about. But then there are other things where I'm like, hey, like, let's get another opinion because, I know where your strengths are. I know where your strengths are, and I know where your strengths are. And same with me. Like, the guys know where my strengths and where my weaknesses are. So there's a level of discussion and trust that we have never had creatively that we do now, which is it's encouraging, I think, looking ahead to the future.
And that has to go beyond like music as well, like just your friendships between each other.
Yeah.
Is it more galvanized now that you've had this experience?
Yes, I think that's a no-brainer. Like, yes, for sure. There were some hard discussions, honestly, that we had in the studio about there were some personal things that came up. There were some performance things that came up, and to be frank, some discussions that we should have had years ago that we had put off. And, I think it's with any type of hard discussion that you have with someone that you love, like you almost always come out the other side with a new level of respect and a new level of love for that person, because it's like, okay, we got through this thing. Like we were honest, we worked through this, and now we're on the other side of it. You can go a long time not having uncomfortable conversations, but all that does is just build things up. And and we were able to release a lot of that built up stuff during the making of this record. And I think that the record is all the better for it.
Oh yeah. So we've touched on how the record was made. I wanted to talk about the thematic intricacies of Voyeurist, because at its core, I have a quote here from the bio Janine sent me. Voyeurist is about embracing the fact that existing in the digital age means we are always being watched. I'm curious about where that concept comes from. Like, what is at its core the genesis of Voyeurist?
So it's a big question, but really, to boil it down, we were, particularly through 2020, honestly, we were really taking note of how much of our experience, how much of our communication, and how much of our identity was wrapped up in a camera and a screen on our phone. And from, the way that you portray yourself on social media being like a not 100% true version of who you are, to you viewing someone else's experiences that they are choosing to put on the internet not being 100% true versions of what those people are or what they're going through. We were just really being made aware of how just being a human in society is just changing, and this idea that like what we're doing is we're just like, using these screens to like, peek in on other people's lives. And it's like, hey, like, well, what's this? Where's he at? Like, hold on. He was here yesterday and then he was in this state the day before. Man, he must be doing really good. Like, just, keeping track of people and, looking up, old friends, old girlfriends, just like, and that's what a voyeur is. It's somebody who's like looking in on someone without the other person knowing it and like deriving some sort of pleasure from it, whether it's like, oh man, that guy's a train wreck now, or like, oh man, like that girl is, was she the one that got away? Like all this stuff. And it's like, it's just an odd existence. And that was really at the core of the idea. But then there's this also this, parallel idea of the fact that you that sits in front of me is not the same you that was 10 years ago or was 20 years ago, or, when you were 5 years old. I was saying earlier, like, if you look at a picture of yourself when you're 10 years old, in most ways, that's a different person. Like physically, that's a different person. Like you have your all new cells by this point. You have ideas, you have relationships, you have loves, you have desires, you have tastes that you didn't have back then. But that's a steadily evolving thing. And we were looking at that from our perspective as a band, where we're just like, we're not the people we were 5 years ago. We're not the people we were 10, 15, 20 years ago. Like, we are different people, but at the same time, like, just accepting that and just being like, hey, we are who we are now. You are who you are now. Like, if I were to have met you 10 years ago and then we just reconnected today, I bet there would be a bit of, oh, well, actually now, like, fill in the blank, and, and hopefully for the better, hopefully, you've evolved as a person, and, hopefully you have realized ways in which you were wrong, realized ways in which you could have treated someone better. Hopefully you should be going like this. Sometimes that's not always the case, but that's another parallel idea, and that's kind of where the whole digital ghost thing came from, where it's like, looking at a picture on your phone of yourself when you were a kid, and that's just a ghost of a person who is not there anymore, So, yeah.
I kind of want to riff on that motive of like the evolution of a person, because 2022 also marks the 20th anniversary of your third record, The Changing of the Times.
Oh, dang. I didn't even realize
that. has evolved a lot. I'm guessing, judging by your reaction, you don't have plans to celebrate the milestone?
This is the first time I'm hearing of it, so yeah.
Well, like, okay, I know that record marks such a major turning point for Underoath, where to the point where there's like a decent chunk of the internet that considers it to be, or at least thinks it is, the first Underoath record. Mm-hmm. When you look back 20 years, does that still have any significance to you?
Oh, I mean, for me, that record has a ton of significance. In a lot of ways, I view our, like, when I say our first record, I tend to be pointing at They're Only Chasing Safety, because that was the first record that us as a group that you see now, that was the first record that we did together. But, me and Aaron were involved. We did 3 records prior to that. And me, Aaron, and Tim and Grant did, Grant wasn't on Changing of Times, but me and Tim and Aaron did, 2 records. So that record marks the first time that we were a collaborative unit fully, because prior to that, we were in high school, and we had a guitar player who's just one of the most talented guitar players I've ever known. And he wrote everything. Like, he wrote all of the music, and, save like 1 or 2 riffs, like he wrote everything. So when he decided he didn't want to be in the band anymore, again, we're, all in high school, but we kind of had to be like, oh, wait, like, can we write music? Like, how does that work? It's like, it was a huge thing. So, that's when Tim got brought in. And that's when we really, the first time we were like, hey, like, we like heavy music, but let's like try to throw in some melody. Like, we just, at the time, we just love Jimmy Eat World. And we were like, what if it's like Jimmy Eat World and like Grade, but like heavier, and that sort of stuff. So that was the first time that we ever really started writing music that was like fully what we wanted, as opposed to like a singular vision of a member. So yeah, and we were in the studio recording that on 9/11, so that's always gonna stick with me. Like, that was such a turning point in the world, and the fact that we were recording that album at that time is just crazy. We met people while we were recording that record that we would be friends with until now, which, it's been over 2 decades. And super important for sure. Yeah. And also during the recording of that record, we realized how far we could stretch like $100 in food, because we didn't have any money, and we ate basically nothing but Velveeta shells and cheese and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for like 6 weeks, because we didn't have any money. So
Humbling experience. Well, for now, 2022 is right around the corner. The age of Voyeurist is upon us, and I couldn't be more fucking stoked. We'll wrap it up here, but Chris, mate, thank you so much for taking the time to have a
Hey,
chat.
thank you very much, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
All right. You too. You have a good day. I'll have a good night.